Alright, so we're going to be looking at the April 1st OCG list. So I am going to be looking at this for like what does this might mean for the TCG. Ray is going to be saying like what it actually means in the OCG, and then Will's just going to be providing good commentary.
Yeah, let's do that.
Very good commentary indeed.
Alright, so let's start off with the newly forbiddens. None. This is bad.
Yeah, very bad.
Oh, are we redoing this again? That's so fucking funny.
Yeah, well, we gotta do it for the content, my guy.
I know.
Alright.
If I'm gonna be on camera, I might as well get content out of it. But yeah, this is
Exactly.
bad. I feel like no list should exist without at least one big change to the game.
Especially
You
tier
know what this
0
reminds
list.
me of? Do you remember that one TCG list? This was like during the middle of COVID, where
Oh
literally
my
nothing
god,
got
that
hit,
fucking
and
list.
only 3 things got unlimited.
Yeah, the what we call the Altergeist list, where like all they did was bring back Multi-Faker or something like that.
It was
That's
like
really
Multi-Faker and I think Necros Unicorn and something else.
Yeah, and like something completely unconsequential, and they just like we were at a point of like, why'd you even give us a list if this is what you're doing?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's all there is to say about the forbidden section. There's nothing. It's bad. You should always at least be hitting something off the list, if for no other reason than to sell products.
Yeah,
Yeah, they got greedy. They want money.
yeah. This
On
is
to
a
the
greedy.
limiteds. First up is Title, Dragon Ruler of Torrents. This is fine. This is like, for TCG, this is kind of like an interesting prediction that there might be Atlantean structure coming soon. I know there's is it a Lightsworn structure? Is that the next one that was announced?
Yeah. We got a
Yes.
one
Yeah.
coming in.
So it's like there's a chance with Title coming back in the OCG, and if it comes back in the TCG, it might like foreshadow an Atlantean structure, which I know people would love. But I don't think it matters in general for TCG or OCG.
I know this doesn't mean much, but the Master Duel has Dragon Rulers at full power, and it's doing fuck all.
Yeah, they
And
have.
That's a
I-
format
and
with
I-
Galaxy
Master Duel
Tomahawk.
doesn't mean much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that is a format with Galaxy Tomahawk.
Yeah, again, as I said, Master Duel doesn't really mean much, but
Yeah.
the fact that Dragon Rulers are doing nothing in Master Duel, I kind of
Yeah.
feel like that we could take that as consideration, that we could just like bring back all the Dragon Rulers, really.
I
Like
think-
at the very
yeah.
minimum at 1, all of them.
Yeah.
I mean,
And this is a point that I was talking about before too, like basing off what Will said, is that I do think like they will eventually just all come to 3 as we get more and more lists. But next step is to just put Tempest to 3, and then they'll follow it up. Like,
yeah, it's hilarious that Tempest is still at 1. I totally forgot about that. I thought it was at 3.
Yeah.
I think if
they're
we're talking
cardinal.
about like why they don't matter, I think it just comes down to the fact that the rank 7 pool is almost identical to what it was in 2013 when they came out. You have
Yeah.
Dracosac and Big Eye are 2 of the best rank 7s in the game still.
Yeah.
The
I think there was just a lack of focus on rank 7s
Yeah.
ever since the Dragon Rulers got hit, right?
Other
Like, the
than
main focus
cash
on
tier,
4
exactly.
eight.
Other than cash tier,
Yeah.
exactly. The only other rank 7 that I can think of that's like, oh, this is a good card, is the Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. Other than that, there
Yeah.
are 3 good rank 7s.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
And
matter.
also the
So, like,
Harmonizer,
yeah.
number 76 Harmonizer.
Oh yeah, Harmonizer, and then there's
okay,
one
too.
more. Is like Scary Moth.
Oh, you're thinking of Titanic Moth.
Titanic Moth,
and
yeah.
over-
Titanic.
The
Moth.
alternative is actually just Infinitrack Mountain Smasher. That one's actually just objectively better.
It's there's the rank 7 pool is
Oh,
horrible.
we also forgot about Dark Arm, the Dark Arm rank 7.
Yeah, sure, that
But
one's
that
like
one's
fine.
cool. Like, alright, so they have like a lot of cool ones, but like again, like
None that
as
actually
cool as
win the
these are,
game.
none of them are really like too relevant right now either.
Yeah,
Right?
none of
With
them
the
in
exception
their
of
own in the
probably
game.
Big Eye. Yeah.
So
Like with the exception of Big Eye right now, pretty much none of those were relevant.
yeah, so we don't need to
Yeah.
worry. We don't really need to worry about the Dragon Rules coming back unless they bring in more good rank 7s. Anyway,
Yeah.
we can move on
And
to
like
the next hit.
even then, Cashier kind of does a better job of what the Dragon Rulers do now.
Yeah. All right, so we can talk about the next hit, which is Wanted Seeker Sinsel Spoil. So that's the Wanted poster going
Yep.
from 3 to 1. This is a good hit. It is
But
not
it's
enough
a
on its
great
own.
hit. Yeah, and it's also it's a good, but it's a hit in the right direction.
Yep.
Right?
It's like
It's
if
always
there
solid.
if there are other hits to Snake Eyes, which there are, This is a good hit. Objectively, this is a good hit. It's a good consistency hit.
Yeah.
It is removing copies of all the powerful cards. However, the fact of the matter is, they just go from playing like 3 poster 1 Diabell Star to 1 poster 3 Diabell Star. That's all they do.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter.
They just flip-flop. They just flip-flop the ratio.
Yeah. This is the Sprite situation over again, where instead of where when blue and starter got hit to 1, what do? You play 3 red.
Yeah. So
3 red and maybe a second carrot.
Exactly.
It's a good hit, but it's not enough on its own. Last limit here is there can be only 1 from 2 to 1. Ray, do you want to talk about this?
This is a
Okay,
pay
so
from
actually-
TCG's book, where they just tend to limit a bunch of the floodgates, and it definitely is like one of the more powerful ones.
So I actually was kind of talking about this before, and part of why like OCG here is starting to hit like these floodgates is because remember we have Maxi in our format, right? And one of the things with Maxis is it's very, very good against combo decks. Combo decks also just put a lot of monsters on board, so now you have all these floodgates going against them, and all these, and Maxi going against them, right? So because of that, you kind of have to get rid of the one and give the combo decks a little bit of backbone now, because like, if you look, we still have Runic Stun as one of the best decks. And I'm not talking about like, oh, let me play an engine with like 20 Runic cards. I'm talking about let's play Inspector Border with like all the Runic cards, right?
It's really stupid, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact is, because we have the floodgates and we have the back C, it's very hard to play combo. Now, I do personally really like doing it this way because I love Maxi, but other people may disagree with me, right? But this is a hit in the right direction, and Colin can actually talk to you about we'll talk about the 3 big ones.
Yeah, so like if we're talking about the 3 floodgates that I hate the most, it's like skill drain, summon limit, and there can be only 1. There can be only one's like the most difficult of the like monster restriction floodgates to play through, because like if you build your deck correctly, you can play through Tikaboo and Rivalry enough. There can be only 1 is really difficult to play through.
Wait, for the video, he means Rivalry and Gozen because Tikaboo is not. Yeah,
Rivalry and Gozen. Those are easy enough to play through. Tikaboo is not. Skill drain also just makes it completely useless. Like, if you're playing a monster-centric deck, like 90% of the decks in the game are, and your opponent isn't, they're playing something like Runic or Labyrinth or Eldritch, and you just lose all your monster effects, you have essentially lost the game, unless you are main decking like Cosmic, which nobody is. And then I just personally find summon limit like annoying. Like, it's not that big of a deal. The problem is if you go into an established board, like if your opponent sets up a board, they set a couple back row as well, and then the first thing they do on their turn is flip summon limit. It's like, okay, great, I have lost the game from their draw phase and they made me sit through their combo. It did not matter. So
they just jacked off and then finished off with
funny enough, I kind of have like an errata for summon limit that I do think might work to keep it like live, right? And that is change it from 2 summons to 3 summons. Make it so you can summon Phoenix under it.
There's already a card that does that. I believe it's called Summon Breaker.
Oh, okay, and it kind of sucks, doesn't it?
It's a continuous spell, yeah.
All right, well there you go. The other one
The
other one I think Colin missed out on that I personally think is like on league, but like there can be only 1 in that stuff, is anti-spell fragrance. Just because being able to shut down spells for a turn can be like very detrimental for a lot of because even though most decks are like monster, like they're monster dependent, we're starting to see a lot of spells are actually just search spells to get to these monsters for the consistency. But the thing is also just losing out on a pool of just spell cards in general just is not a good look.
Yeah, I can see that it can be a very annoying card to play against, but it's like when in a game where Nightmare Phoenix exists, it's just like if you can get 2 monsters on the field and you have a card to discard, you're fine. That's the only problem is I usually, if I find a deck, like Fluffles or like Runic, just loses to anti-spell really hard and really quickly, I usually try to engineer a way in which I can play through it using Phoenix or something like Tornado Dragon, just something like that. So I usually don't find that it's too frustrating, but that's maybe just because that's how I deck build. And most people don't do that.
Yeah, I do think like one of the problems with like, well, not problems, but like one of the things with like the way that you deck build that is like there are times where like these spell heavy decks also just can't put 2 monsters on the board.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, Will, did you have a comment before we move on?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I definitely do believe that anti-spell is one of like the least degenerate cards, because as stated before, like most decks that we play nowadays just play spell cards to search the monsters, and sometimes anti-spell just doesn't really do anything because you probably already had the monsters that you wanted anyways. And with that said, I'm not saying that we should never hit anti-spell, but I feel like at this current time, it's probably fine for the most part. Like
It's
there's
like
probably
low
a lot
on the
of
chopping block.
yeah, it's very on the low. There's usually a monster that is like has a built-in way to like pop back row anyways.
Yeah.
Or like some decks do, or as stated by Colin, you could just like play an X deck monster, whether it being Nightmare Phoenix or some other archetypal monster that has built-in back row hate.
Yeah. So that is it for the limited section. Honestly, fine. We're cutting chaff from the list that doesn't need to be on there. We're hitting the top deck in a pretty impactful way, depending on what else gets hit, and we're removing a very annoying floodgate from the card pool. I think the limited section is fine. I just wish there was either more of that or more forbiddens.
I feel like the limiteds would have been fine if we actually had some forbiddens.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. Let's move on to the semi-limits. So the first one is Ib the World Chalice Justiciar. This is the Synchro 5. This is going from 1 to 2. This is perfectly fine. This card does not matter. Ray, I think you said before, like, you only ever play one copy if you're playing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if you are playing it, like, playing a deck that revolves around summoning normal monsters from your deck is just not a good game plan. Like, Ships is not tier 0 for a reason. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're me who plays Goblin Material Actors, in that case you're actually playing a competent deck.
Yeah, but it's like I get that like unexpected die is just full combo for this deck, but it's like, are we really gonna be doing that? Like, it's so weird.
Again, like this card will just, and like we said, this card will just come to 3, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so
we got it back to 1 in both TCG and OCG, didn't do anything, and like we said, you only ever play 1. So
we can move on. The next hit is SP Little Knight from 3 to 2. Do we want to all say it together?
This is inconsequential.
So
this
stupid.
hit doesn't matter.
It doesn't
absolutely nothing.
shit.
To put it into perspective, I play like pretty much all the extra decks, right? Even in those, and this is not even a money issue, you play 2 Little Knight. Why? Because it's the most cuttable one.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're literally only playing 5 extra deck cards, which a lot of extra decks have gone past, where like there's really maybe like 7 or 8 that you want to play, right? You're not playing 3 Little Knight. Little Knight's the first one you cut to 2, right? And like, there's no, like, I can't even think of a like deck off the top of my head that only wants 5 monsters in the extra deck. Right.
I know Colin had said this before, but as he kind of like stated, to reiterate, is that this is pretty much just the OCG saying that we have our eyes on SP Little Knight, and there's a very strong chance that we're going to be actually removing this card from play. Like, we are going to, like, eventually this thing might actually go to 1, if not even banned, because they like to do that with other generic cards, as we know for the OCG.
Yeah.
So like, let's talk about like if you should sell this card, seeing it on the list, right?
Yeah, so we talked about this earlier, and it's like from TCG perspective, right? From the TCG's perspective, you don't have anything to worry about. All right, take all the other good like extra deck boss monsters. They're like generic, right? Dragoon, DPE, Zeus, Baron, Chaos Angel, Access Code, Apollosa,
Moral Savage.
Moral Savage. Yeah. tons
King
of them.
Calamity.
King Calamity, yeah. Tons of them were restricted or hit in the OCG, and they never hit in the TCG. They were just like, the players are going to suck it up, and we're eventually going to release something stronger that reins it in. I think that is what is going to happen with SP. I think the most that's going to happen is it might go to 1, again, just to stop like the Labyrinth Extrav build. But like we talked about, like you were already not playing more than 2, and it's like if you have more than 2, you don't really need to like worry about it right now. You might consider selling it if, like what Ray said, like if it would get banned in the OCG.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, what I said was like, if Little Knight goes to 1 in the OCG, that means it's on its way to 0. Because like OCG likes to do this thing, but like they put it to 2 to tell you it's on the radar, but it's still too new and expensive to let go of. Then they put it to 1 because that's just a natural progression to get it out of the Extract decks because it was too generic. And then after that, putting it to 1, they like to ban it. If you start seeing, so basically, if you see this card go to 1, sell yours to 1.
It's like the complete opposite with the TCG, where the TCG just
They'll
like
just hit it, they'll either just hit
like
it
take
outright.
maybe something that's like a ban card. They'll limit it, realize it does nothing, put it to semi-limited, realize that it still doesn't do anything, and then they'll just completely take it off free and unlimited. It's like the complete opposite of TCG.
I think the best like comparison we can make in the TCG to Little Knight is Zeus. Like Zeus was at 3. People were like, dude, Zeus is so broken. In the Zodiac builds, it's like, you know, you had a 6 effect Zeus, and it just won the game if you got to stick it. And I believe it did get hit to 1 in OCG.
Yes, it is at 1.
So it's like, yeah, it got hit in OCG, but it never got hit in TCG. So I think as long as SP doesn't get banned in OCG, we don't really need to worry about losing it.
Yeah. The only thing like I would watch out for is like what I said about the ban and the limit into ban thing is because SP Little Knight is kind of choking out Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Cerberus, where before you had to make a choice, now you don't. And that's something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually doesn't want you doing, is like you're supposed to play like to try and make the right choice, not just by having every choice.
Yeah.
So I do think that is
also
something
choking out
to
Unicorn to an extent.
Yeah, to an extent, it also chokes out Unicorn.
Yeah, that's the thing that I like to point out about SP Little Knight is it's secretly a Link 3. Like it's a Link 2, but it's actually just a Link 3.
Exactly.
So, anyways, we can move on to the next hit, which is Fire King High Avatar Kirin. That's the level 8, going from 3 to 2. Who wants to take this? Because I want to talk about this shit.
I'll kind of take this one.
Sure, make it quick.
This is both inconsequential and kind of cool to see. Like they're saying Fire King Snake Eyes is on our radar. It's too expensive to hit right now. This also doesn't make a difference since like every deck is only like the Fire King ones in OCG are only playing one of these guys, and like I personally don't like it, but it is giving implications that like the deck will be hit in the following list. I'd rather move on to the next card. The
way that I see it is that they're just more saying like we're not just gonna hit the Snake Eyes, just pure Snake Eyes. We're also looking at the Fire King variant as well. But we're hitting both sides.
Yeah,
which I think is the wrong way to look at it. Yeah.
Speaking of, next card on the list, Snake Eyes Ash from 3 to 2.
Okay, let's keep this one brief because we're gonna have a
we
video
could talk about this for hours.
We're gonna talk about this card in a whole other video, and I just thought, I'm saying that right now, Colin did not know we are, but we will talk about this card in a whole other video. But let's just say right now, what do you think? Like general thoughts, go, everyone.
Good hit, not enough.
All right.
Yeah, it's a good hit, but it's not enough. It's the same thing as everything else. It's on the radar. It'll eventually go down.
This is an on the radar hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will talk about in the next video.
Yeah, I mean, I'll like 30 seconds or less here. I'll talk about this, right? I think there's plenty of decks where they hit the main card down from 3 to 1 or 3 to 2, and everyone was like, "Oh, it doesn't matter at all. It's still just playable." The two that I mentioned before that I still think about are Miscellaneous Source and Unchained Red Dog. The hits did end up mattering a lot more. Nobody's playing either of those decks. I think this is less severe because it is at 2, but I think in like when you look at it in the vacuum, it's like this doesn't do that much. But when you consider everything that we've talked about and everything we have yet to talk about, it does actually do a decent amount.
Yeah.
But
I think the main thing is the wanted to one really like solidifies this card also going to. But and I'm gonna flip the script a little on Collins here. Why I personally think this card should have just also either gone to one with the wanted or just straight up banned is because the reason why miscellaneous swords to one mattered a lot is because if it ever got negated, you can't just go into another one.
Yeah.
Like you can't just find another one because it's not there. With two, you could still technically find another Ash. But this does hit the consistency pretty hard, which I do like.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the next hit. Again, another semi-limit from 3 to 2, Kaiser Coliseum.
This is on its way to 0. This card is on its way to 0.
This is a card that just shouldn't exist at this point in time. It's just not a fun card to play against.
It's so stupid.
This is basically like the same reason behind why we shouldn't have there can be only one, with it just like, you know, locking out so many different decks and everything. This card should just be a 0. And I hope it is.
You can literally just activate this card like normal summon Fossil Dyna, and then tell you.
And then the game's over. And the game's over.
Just
Yeah.
shake my hand. That's all you're gonna do. Just shake my hand.
Yeah, which by the way is a legitimate deck in OCG. Is you activate this card and summon Champion.
Yep. So good hit. It should just gone straight to 0 though. Anyway. The last semi-limit we have is Pot of Extravagance from 3 to 2. We kind of talked about it a little bit in conjunction with Little Knight. Do we want to say it together? This doesn't matter.
It should have been Prosperity.
Yeah.
No, I think Prosperity is at 1 in OCG, isn't it?
No, Prosperity is at 1. And Prosperity at 1 makes a lot of sense because Prosperity is not Pot of Greed. That card's just a generic search anything in your deck.
Well, I still think Prosperity should be at 0.
Yeah, Prosperity is a card that I honestly, like, I've been advocating to just, like, not exist. But, we've had Extrav, I think we've had either, was it Extrav or Desires at 2 in TCG? And it didn't.
Yeah, it was Desires.
Okay, and it didn't make a difference. This is the same thing as Desires at 2. Doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, like,
still at 2, which is very stupid.
It's like a I don't know. I hate these like generic consistency hits where it's like just every deck suffers. Every deck is instantly more like less consistent.
Like this makes more sense in OCG than TCG, just because OCG just has more stun decks that can play Extrav and like benefits from the draw 2 over like the 1 from what's called. I think the reason why this went to semi is because like while they do know that generic draws are like okay to have, they want to keep it to 3 copies in a deck, which is the whole reason for putting the you can't like activate. You basically can't activate any other pot cards with pot cards, right? And the thing is, OCG, one of the things that has been happening is people would just play 3 extra and 1 prosperity, and like because prosperity only exists at once, it's very rare you see them just like together anyway. Which is, and they want to cut it down from 4 to 3 in that total cut. With that said, I think the right thing to do would have been just to ban the, prosperity and just keep Extrav at 3. But
Extrav is like the most fair card. That's like the most fair pot card that still sees play. It's like Desires in and of itself is like kind of like strong, but like Extrav, it's like, oh yes, I'm going to give up over a third of my extra to draw 2 cards. It's like that's really, it's a really fair card. Anyway, and you don't get to choose. That I think that like if you got to choose the cards you banish off Extrav, it would be way
a lot stronger.
Anyway. All right, so we're gonna move on to the unlimits. Semi-limits honestly are all fine. There's a couple that I don't like, but they're all fine. For the unlimits, we're just gonna skip this first one because it's gonna need to be spoken about with its errata. So
let's speed blitz to 5 though, because these all have the same reasoning, right?
Girsu, the Orcus Mexanite from 2 to 3. I have absolutely no idea why this was ever limited.
They should have never been limited. Darkworm, same reason. I don't know why this was ever limited.
Rite of Aramasir from
Yeah.
2 to 3, it's like, sure, cool.
Okay, it's
Adventure
fine.
Engine's not good anymore.
This was
Also, Griffin. I'm pretty sure it was Griffin Rider's banned. So
Is it actually? Yeah. Okay, if
Yeah,
Griffin
yeah,
Rider's banned,
Griffin
this is not even like
yeah,
you don't need
this
any
card
heroes.
doesn't exist.
This was back when they tried to massacre the adventure package.
Yeah.
Like overdid
Well,
it.
this could have came back the moment Griffin went to 0. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Up next,
Launcher.
Infinity Launcher from 2 to 3.
Hey, you're
This
happy,
is-
Derek. This card does nothing.
It's like it's a little scary to think about, but yeah, it's like Infernity just doesn't do enough.
Yeah, Infernity's not.
It's especially doesn't do anything in the OCG because Maxi, Nibiru,
Yeah, it's like-
that's way too much.
You have decks like Inzectors that are similar to Infernity, where it's like just essentially infinite link material. But it's like infinite link material doesn't do anything when
you have
can't
nothing
do
to go
anything.
into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this is the second to last change on this list is the only one that's like scary but also kind of cool is Change of Heart from 2 to 3. It's a little freaky, especially in like tier 0 fire format that they had it at 2, let alone 3. But I guess I'm gonna let you talk about it for a short amount of time. Just because you have a different perspective.
Okay, so I love Change of Hearts. I think it's a great card to have in the format, right? Partially because like this card is basically just like stronger mind control and brain control, all that other stuff, right? But one of the things why I personally really like Change of Hearts is Change of Heart, if you don't know, is actually something kind of preventing like decks from like fire from getting way out of hand, which is why like fire is actually a lot weaker in OCG than it is in TCG, not just because of Maxi, but also because we have cards like Change of Heart, something that I don't want to show, but there is something called the Borreload package that we play in OCG in certain like more rogue decks that can make it, and that's because this Change of Heart, mind control, and those types of like kind of brain control type cards actually stop floaters that float based on destruction, right? Which is a very strong form of removal. Right?
I could actually pitch in on this, but in a different manner.
Go ahead.
You can say what you want to say, and I'll continue.
To pretty much summarize it in a very unique way, when I played Goblin Material Actors, we do actually be able to steal our stuff, not just from like the F-Zero Utopic Future, because that thing negates and steals, but also Gabunga could just take Big Gabunga, the rank 3 Goblin, can just let you take an opponent's monster and attach it to itself as another form of just like gaining control of your opponent's monster. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It is a mind control type effect.
And I can definitely evaluate that like taking control of your opponent's cards, like anything like that, like Change of Hearts, Talents, or Thrust into Talents, or anything like that matter, Big Eye, Econ, they're all really strong.
Yeah, they're strong but situational, which is like really good. Like that's what some people don't understand. They're strong but situational. If you've noticed, you don't always like while you do use the Change of Heart effect from Talents a decent amount, you do like if you think about it, a lot of times you're also just trying to draw your way out and stuff like that. And the fact that tactics can exist at 3 with all the effects means realistically it is kind of fine to have a stronger version of the effect, being you don't need any conditions met to activate one of the effects. That's the way I look at it. And especially like this brings me back to the pot point, right? If you look at it, drawing 2 from extra is not very like it's not very as game breaking. Like a pot of greed is not as game breaking as it used to be.
Yeah.
Right. So in the same reasoning, Change of Heart, and like remember, Raigeki also just came back to 3 in OCG, in TCG, and like look what's been happening, right?
That has not been a recent change. That has been a long.
Exactly, that's been a while, and like. And OCG has remember OCG has both Heavy Storm and Feather Duster too.
That's
and
crazy.
like
I forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly. So like I do think like these one-off powerful effects that are very specific to the situation, right? It helps pad out, it helps everyone not have the same side deck.
What was actually really funny about that Heavy Storm is that around the same time where they like limited Heavy Storm, the TCG got Snatch Steal to 1.
I think Snatch Steal, like, I think these, like, those types of effects actually do have to be kind of tagged onto just, like, regular spells. I don't think they should be on something like an equipped spell, just because, like, there's too many, like, variables with, like, equipped spells.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll say about Change of Heart and Snatch Steal for that matter, and I think Mind Control as well, is like, when they came off the list, I think it was Mind Control came to 3 or something like that, and then Change of Heart came off and everything. I was going to play, I played Orcust, Horus, Mystial, right? And the entire point was like, oh, if I Snatch Steal or Mind Con or Change of Heart an opponent's monster, I can use it to make Zombie Vampire and just mill a couple cards, and if I mill an Orcust, I'm just big chilling. And every time I activated or I had a Change of Heart or a Mind Control in my hand, I was just like, I wish this was just another hand trap. I wish this was just a Mirror or a Veiler or a Ghost Hunter. So it's like, it sounds really scary, but I don't think it actually is.
Alright, let's talk about the big elephant in the room.
The big, very cute anime girl elephant in the room. Summon Circ is coming to 3, ladies and gentlemen, but it's being errata, so we can quickly read the errata. Alright. You can only use the effect of this card's name once per turn. 1. If this card is link summoned, you can special summon one monster from your hand in defense position to your opponent's zone this card points to, but negates effects. Then you can special summon one monster with the same type as that monster from your deck in defense position, but negates effects. And if you do, you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except monsters with the same original type as the monster summoned from the deck. So I believe the part that is changed is the summon restriction after the monster is summoned.
See, everything after and if you do is basically the add-on.
It's Dark Magician support.
Partially, yes. Also,
that's meant to be a joke. Also technically,
partially, yeah. But like, so to put it into perspective, what does this do? This takes it out of most combo decks, funny enough. Right? And I'll explain why. So one of the things with combo decks is like, while it can be like, you know, warrior combo with, if you think about like warrior combo back in Goki when they did use this card, while they did like go into a warrior and play most of like the warriors through the turn, what did they end on? Gumblar Dragon, or like Firewall Dragon, which is a Cybers and stuff like that. I think the issue right now, like why this restriction is like very good right now at least, is that a lot of like end boards for like those big combo decks that like to use Summon Sword
are just generic monsters.
Yeah, they tend to go into like the stronger types. The stronger types, which tend to be like dragons and stuff like that. Where will this be good in? I do think this is going to be very good for Dragon Link specifically, but I think that's the only deck off the top of my head that this is going to be really good in.
I think this will be good for Dragon Link. I think it'll also be good for like Orcust and Phantom Knights because it's a dark 3 spellcaster. So I think that kind of synergizes well. Like if I was going to play an OCG, I would be big happy because I like Orcust now, and it's like okay, this is kind of cool. This is I can see where like I'd have to like actually test the lines, but it's like this seems like it'd be decent in Orcust.
Oh, funny enough, what this card does in OCG is essentially what you guys getting Rusty back does for TCG.
That's really
right.
Funny.
It does make the deck really fun and really cool and everything. But at the same time, as you know, Rusty coming back, even though how strong Rusty is, it's not overbearing. You know?
Yeah. I think the other thing, like, just to consider is the fact that you do have to give your opponent a monster. So in a world where SP Little Knight exists, just giving them another material for free kind of does balance out.
I kind of vaguely remember that this thing once was used for FTKs.
It was.
Oh, it was always used for FTKs. This card was very.
This card was like Curious, where it's like anytime your opponent summoned Curious, they were just not doing anything good with it.
Yeah, exactly.
The only time I ever remembered this thing is that this was like either used for FTKs or to see those dumb YouTube videos where people like to play this and Halki Feebrex, despite the fact that there has never been a world where those two cards existed side by side.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to be fair, it did know CG. But anyway, funny enough. What's funny is like this restriction, if you think about it, functionally is the same as when Firewall got restricted to Cybers. Yes, not as harsh as when Firewall got hit, got eroded, but along the same line. So I do think this card has become not like, I don't think it's fair, but I think it's broken more specifically towards the decks that can use it.
Yeah, I think the way that I think you're right with the firewall thing, where it's like it's no longer going to be a card that is in every single deck, regardless of whether or not they make it frequently. But the decks that would appreciate being able to just kind of cheat out whatever they need from the deck, they will use and abuse this. Like I'm even thinking like in like an Orcus Taurus build, right? Like it's like, you know, you do the Horus stuff, like, you know, get a couple.
I can actually see this also being. I can actually also see this being kind of strong with Bestial variants now too. Actually,
I'm not 100% sure.
Bestial variant.
Like for instance, like Bestial Resonator.
Oh right, it's type, not type and attribute. Okay, yeah, this is insane.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was thinking like, oh, if you summon a Dark to your opponent's field, then you can't summon the Bellion.
No, you can. As long as you summon a dragon.
It's effective negate. Okay, so you can't like load fire. You can't use.
You can't.
So you can't do.
You can't really do like.
It's basically just like you get to make a link for, like. For free,
essentially. Yeah, exactly. Like this actually kind of gets to the like this is probably like a little better Selene.
Yeah, I could see that.
Right? Yeah. Like this is actually think about it. This is effective Selene if Selene like could be used for like if Selene can change like from spellcaster to like whatever, almost, right?
Yeah, it's essentially just a generic Selene where it just gets you to a rank
Selene
or not a rank or a link for
go into access code or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean,
I do think it's fine.
I think this is cool. I think it's an interesting bring back. I'm definitely gonna have to like theory with this.
I would look at the ones decks I would look at for this, right, are look at Dragon Link for obvious reasons, because dragons do end up summoning dragons. I know everyone wants to say, oh, like Dark Warrior's gonna use this. No, they're not. Dark Warriors are ending on too many dragons. And then the other deck I would look at is like generic Cybers with this card.
I don't think Cybers works because like by the time you summon a Link 3, you're probably locked into Cybers.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because it's just a spell. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head with Dragon Link, and I think Orcus or Phantom Knights is about the other.
Dragons and Fiends are really the ones to look at because they tend to have both powerful monsters and like good starters.
Yeah.
Like Warriors have really, really good starters, but they don't exactly have the greatest like end board monsters.
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to point out.
The only warrior one I would look at is like maybe Sword Soul, actually. But even then, like those Sword Souls have like an aqua and stuff like that.
No, they don't have an aqua. I think they're mostly.
Are they all warriors?
No, they're all worms.
Oh, okay.
I think.
So yeah, maybe.
But also, like, you get locked into synchros with the tokens, so it's kind of hard to do. Anyway, point is, tennies maybe, but nobody's playing pure tennies.
Exactly.
Anyways.
So anyway, nice change. It's a good change.
So it's a cool card. I'm excited for it to come back. There's one thing I want to say before we finish this section, and that is TCG players. This card is not coming back yet. You don't need to buy it out.
Yeah.
By the time it comes out with an errata, it will be reprinted. You don't need to buy it out.
I was about to say, like, do realize that this card will come back, but that doesn't mean you need to buy out the current one that we have.
It's like, I looked, and it's like the super rare from Soul Fusion or whatever is like up to like $4. And I think the whatever the original print, I think it was like a manga promo or something like that, was like 20, almost 30. And it's like, we don't need to be buying this out. It's not coming back yet. It's going to get a reprint when it comes back. It's just like Firewall. It's just like every other card that's gotten errata.
It's gonna take quite a while. Like, I'm talking like several months.
Yeah.
With that said, if anyone's looking for any, I got the Shonen Jump promo for 25.
We're not shilling, right?
I am. Gotta make that money. Alright, anyway.
Do you think that Summon Sork will be reprinted in the second Rarity Collection?
Yeah,
I could see that.
That's probably where it comes.
If not the Rarity Collection, then the tins.